Hey people, what's up? Hart here. Super excited for this one. So today I'm going to be doing a breakdown of my newest single, Winter Dreams, which is just in time for spring. And it's going to be released next Friday on all the major streaming platforms. So if you want to pre-save that, I'm going to put a link to it in the description below. So this is more of a cinematic, chill, lo-fi type beat. So I'm going to go ahead and play a snippet of it here so you know what we're going to break down. And then we'll hop into Ableton and I'll show you the project file. So as I mentioned in the intro, this one is quite a bit more cinematic sounding than most of my other tracks that I've produced. And a lot of that has to do with this piano. And this is the first element that I started with, and probably the thing that took most of the time to create. If we look at the MIDI here, it's a little intimidating to look at it like this. But pretty much what I've done here is, so we're in B flat minor for the scale here. And the most important thing to note here is a lot of these notes are just repeats. So I'm playing several octaves of the same note to layer and kind of make the chords sound more dense. And it's giving it that nice cinematic feel by making these nice extended chords that are kind of covering almost the whole piano keyboard. But what I have here is I have the one chord. So this would be the B flat minor. And this Ableton is saying it's A sharp, but basically it's B flat. And so I have the root note down here, and we're just carrying it up to, like, this is 3 octaves. And so I've done that with all of these chords. So if I play this by itself, this is just the Native Instruments Noire piano. Okay, so the processing for that piano, I have Ableton's velocity effect, which I've mentioned in many of my videos before, one of my favorite stock effects to just put on something to make it a little more mellow, which is perfect for chill or lo-fi style beats. I'm using a little bit of EQ. I just have a high pass on here to cut out some of these rumbly lows. And then I have a compressor, which isn't doing a whole lot. It's just kind of tamping down some of those harder hits, so it's not spiking my volume. And the next thing I did was I grabbed the Una Corda felt piano from Native Instruments to layer those original piano chords with. And this one just has a really nice texture to it. It's a little bit warmer and has some nice just kind of noise to it, which is perfect for lo-fi. And I have a lot of this low end cut out because there's just a lot going on down here that we don't need. And then I'm also using this high shelf to dampen a lot of these highs, which if I boost this, there's just a lot of kind of noise here that I didn't want. So after I had those piano chords layered, I kind of wanted to add some simpler pads in the background to make it a little more lush and kind of have that soundscape in the background. So I found this pad from Cloud Supply and basically just took those same chords from the piano and simplified them. So I took out all of the melody line, all of the passing notes, and just kind of changed the voicings of the chords. So just changed some of the inversions pretty much and made sure everything was quantized so the pad didn't feel like it was kind of dragging the rest of the track. I just automated some of the gain on this utility plugin here. Pro tip, never automate on your fader because then you can't change your volumes. Always put a utility on your track and then automate your gain from there if you want to automate volume. And I just kind of have this so at the beginning of the chords, it just kind of swells into it. And this works really nicely when the cello comes in a little bit later because this almost sounds kind of like a string backing and it kind of just goes together with it very nicely. And unlike my pianos, I do have a vintage verb right on the channel here just to make it a little more ambient and washed out. The two pianos I have on a send to the same Valhalla vintage verb, just on a send rather than on the channel. And then EQ for that pad is basically just a high pass as well, cutting down on those middle frequencies a little bit because it was fighting with the piano. So I just wanted to make sure everything fit in there nicely. And the last thing I grabbed to layer with those pianos and the pad was this free MkIII instrument from Labs by Spitfire Audio. And I basically just simplified these chords even more, so I'm only playing these two triads, which again are just kind of following along with the chords up here. And again, I did the same thing as this other pad and just kind of automated it so it gave it a little more organic feeling than just playing straight through. Kind of get Pink Floyd vibes from this one. Which is probably why I like it. I love Pink Floyd. And that's pretty much everything in terms of like the background soundscape elements. And I have all of those grouped into just a bus here with some glue compression just to kind of help everything mesh together. Everything is sidechained to the kick, just a very slight amount. And then I have Soothe 2 on here just to kind of reduce some of those harsher frequencies. And the next thing I added was the guitar. And basically I recorded this to kind of be like a call and response a little bit. And then in parts of it, they play together to harmonize. So I have both of them running through the Archetype Corey Wong, which is my favorite guitar amp sim, perfect for this type of music. And then I have them grouped into a bus here, so I'll ignore this part for just a second, but I just have a little bit of glue compression and then Soothe 2 to help clean up some of those harsher frequencies in the mid-range. And then I also have this audio effect rack that I created with Portal, EQ8, and Valhalla Vintage Verb. And basically all that's doing is it's automating Portal going from, 100% dry to 100% wet. I'm dragging up this EQ8 so it's only going to granulate the upper portions of the frequencies. And then that Valhalla Vintage Verb is going from 0% to 100% as well. And basically I just wanted to use this as a cool transition. So it's completely dissolving the dry guitar into like this cool granular effect. The only other cool thing that I'd done with the guitar here was I took this last note and I've reversed it and I'm using it as a transition here. So without any of the processing, it sounds like this. And so what I've done is I've just added some EQ, so just cutting off any of the higher end. I have thermal on here with the Dreamy Lo-Fi piano setting at 100% wet. And then 100% reverb. And so with all of that processing, it sounds like this. And I just thought that was kind of a cool transition effect rather than using like a riser or reverse cymbal, which, is pretty standard and most other people are going to use. So just something a little bit unique to try. So for bass, I originally recorded it on my bass guitar, direct in, the same way I did my regular guitar, and I just didn't really like the way it was sitting in the mix, so I scrapped it and used the Scarby Rickenbacker bass from Native Instruments, and this one I liked a lot better in the mix. So I just have a really simple bass line kind of following along the root notes of the chords. I'm using a pretty narrow EQ here to cut off quite a bit of the lows and the highs as well. I'm using a decapitator to give it just a little bit more grit. And again, this is sidechained to the kick as well. And the last melodic element I have in this track is this cello that I added, which is another freebie from Labs. It's the Cello Moods instrument. And I just recorded a really simple cello part kind of in this B section when all of the other instruments drop out. And then I just have some pretty simple EQ, a high pass on here, a high shelf as well. And then I also have the EQ automated. So this EQ band actually drops down as the guitars come back in, just because this is the main frequency for the guitars as well, so I didn't want that cello to be fighting with it too much. You can actually see here, I have it set so it's showing where the guitar is playing as well. So I just kind of dipped that middle section down a little bit. All right, and the last main thing we have are the drums. So I have pretty simple kick pattern here. And I'm using Saturn II to give it a little bit of extra saturation, mainly on this upper frequency spectrum, just to help it punch through the mix a little bit better. And I have this snare. It's kind of several different like wood hits resampled together to make that one. And if you want to see how I go through that process, I have a video linked below, the Beginner's Guide to Chill Lo-Fi, if you want to check that out. So the hi-hats in this one actually started off their life as a tambourine loop. And this was a little too harsh for the vibe I was going for. So I just came down here to the warping options, left it on beats, and changed these double arrows to the one single arrow. And what this does, it allows you to drag this down, and this changes basically the amount of transients. So it sounds a little more like a hi-hat now and less like a tambourine. So processing on that, I just have a high-pass filter and just damping some of those higher frequencies. I have this SP950, which the company who makes it was nice enough to send over for me. And this is a really cool kind of lo-fi plugin. It has some really nice vintage filters and some tuning effects kind of from the older vintage samplers. So a really nice lo-fi plugin. And then, of course, I just have it sidechained to my kick as well. And Soothe 2 to kind of help mellow out some of those higher frequencies. All right, I think that pretty much does it for this one. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please remember to hit that like button, leave me a comment, and subscribe if you're not already so you don't miss future videos. And if you'd like to support me on other platforms as well, I have my Spotify and my Instagram accounts linked below. And like I said from the beginning, this single Winter Dreams will be released next Friday if you'd like to listen to it on there. So thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.